Hello and welcome to Seeking Ishvara. Today I'm going to talk about how I process emotions, and maybe this will help you. Of course, everybody has difference in opinion, and I am only but one person with my own experience. So, let's first start off by you got to be able to notice. You got to be able to notice the mind, okay? And the mind is the thinking voice that takes you out of where you physically are. Your mental state goes somewhere else. Okay? It'll take you to the past and it'll recreate scenarios, or it will take you into the future, creating scenarios that haven't happened, and the only way that you make those future scenarios happen is by what are you doing right now in the physical reality. So you got to start noticing. You got to start noticing what those thoughts are, because if you're not aware, then you're not going to be aware of what cycles you're trapped in. So the first step, notice. And then once you're noticing, become confident in the truth that you are not your thoughts. Because if you're noticing that you're thinking in the past or in the future, then who's the one noticing? That was pretty significant for me when I started to realize, okay, well, if I am witnessing, this is why they talk about the witness or the watcher, if I am witnessing that I'm having thoughts, then I have also control over thinking those thoughts or not. And so what often happens is that the thoughts we've never been told that we're not our thoughts. And so the thoughts are very continual in the mind, in the mental space, in the mental reality for a lot of people the majority of the time. Okay? So becoming aware, and then you're like, where does emotion come into this? So this is, I think, broken down. All of this is in other videos. So the emotions, life happens, right? You have somebody let's just say you have a conflict with somebody in your life who doesn't have conflict. So could be an easy one to trigger somebody with. But so you have a conflict, and then you feel all of these things. Okay, emotion. You feel maybe angry or frustrated or sad, for whatever reason that's unique to your experience. But if you become aware of when this life thing happens to you that triggers you, you can become aware of what thoughts are going through my head when I experience this emotion, frustration, because I'm undervalued. Okay, so if you start to pay attention, and then, just in the regular day-to-day, when you're not having an emotional response, when life doesn't happen, then you can become more aware of what will happen when you're having an emotional response. Because, when you start to get good at controlling the mind still surfaces when you're emotionally triggered through something. Like, that's how you do the work. That's where the work is. Because whatever you're getting triggered on is something, it's a pattern that is formed from what has happened to you in the past. Because we are pattern-making creatures. Okay? Hopefully I'm explaining this clearly enough, and if you need further clarification, let me know. Okay, so you have an emotional response, you're frustrated that you have a conflict with this person because you don't feel like you're valued. Okay, this is all neurologically wired together. You have the emotion because somebody said or did something to you that was similar as what happened to you in the past, and you're recreating it. And if by paying attention to the mind, it can be like, oh, I feel like I'm undervalued. This person doesn't listen to me when I say something. I don't feel like I'm heard. Okay, well, and so this is where, if you're great at this, then I commend you for it, because it's something that I like struggle with. But I'm getting better at it, because if you know that you're reacting this way, I'm frustrated because I feel like in my life it's been a pattern that I've experienced, and like, why do I always feel this way? Or why is it that this always happens to me? Okay, instead of going, why does this always happen to me? Recognize that as a pattern. And then note what you do after you've been triggered, because that is probably also a pattern if it keeps coming up, if the same thing keeps coming up. And then go, you got to somehow break the pattern, because if things keep going in cycles, it's because you're like, the universe doesn't speak in words, it speaks in vibration. So how are you also vibrationally, energetically feeling all the time? That is what you're putting out into the universe and magnetizing back to you. That might not be what you want to hear, but this is my experience. Okay, if I'm putting out frustrated energy, I'm going to draw more frustrating things to me, because that is what I am experiencing in a cycle. But here you have the opportunity to process when this life thing happens to you and go, okay, I'm really frustrated with this. But instead of just continuing to be frustrated, what can you do differently? Because this is how you will also help break the patterns of the past. So witness what it is that you've always done when you get frustrated. And then what if instead of me getting frustrated, allow the frustration its moment. Let that emotion pass through you. But then don't hold on to it. Take action of what you would do differently. Maybe have a conversation. This is an example of, if you're frustrated, have a conversation with that person. But don't do it. You got to do it when you're in a calm, mature headspace. If this is hard for you, then I guess maybe communicating, is at least the first step. And then start the conversation off by saying, look, I'm frustrated with this because of this. Just going along this, as frustration as an example. So the person knows that you're coming into this conversation frustrated, or I'm angry, or I'm sad, and your words are going to come out differently when you're in an emotion versus when you're level-headed. So, and if you're sad, as an example, over someone passing away, Like, it really sucks. You're gonna have to, like, you're gonna feel grief, but know that, like, it's okay to feel grief, and know that it comes from love. Grief comes from love. And I mean, even frustration comes from the love and the respect of yourself. So, but the place where I come from is that when I have conversations, I acknowledge, right, that this situation has caused me to feel a certain way. But I've gotten to the point where I can de-escalate myself because I recognize, hey, I got triggered with this. I had this response. And then that's when I use my mind to think about, why am I having this response? Like, because you can either let it go, you can process it, you can let it go, or you can go, why am I thinking these thoughts? What's going on in my mind? Why am I having this response? And then go back into the past and figure out where that came from. And then ask, is this how I want to have my life be ruled by this emotional response that maybe I gained back when I was like 10 or 11 or 15? Like, if it's something that you want to work on in yourself, like, sometimes going back into the past and being like, I was younger, or I was treated this way, but that doesn't mean that I need to let that habit that I've allowed to form, like, run my life now. So that's also what I do. But a part of it also is, like, still having that conversation, either within yourself or with somebody else. Maybe that conversation is, like, within yourself. Like, if you feel like you fail when you, like, do something wrong and it completely crushes you, even if it's minute, you can be like, where does that come from? And, like, no, it doesn't mean what it has always meant. And you can change your mental patterns. But really, the first important step is just acknowledging, I think, that, the mind, and when you are being taken over by your thoughts, and know that when you're being taken over by your thoughts, that doesn't mean that it's the truth. That's just the perception that you have at the moment. But it doesn't mean it's the truth. Because you don't know what anybody else is thinking. Unless somebody's learned telepathy. But I think that's where I'm going to leave you. Food for thought. Gotta give the mind, might as well give the mind something useful to think about, right? And then one last thing is, when you start to separate from your mind, try and treat it as a friend. Because that friend, your mind, is coming from a place of protection. But you get to choose, as a consciousness, what you need protecting from. If you have any comments, please add them. If you enjoyed this conversation that I'm having with you in your mind, give me a like and maybe a subscribe. Thanks.